Hello, welcome to Film and Television Examinations, where we talk about movies and television shows, old and new, along with different types of genres. And for today's episode, we're going to talk about the horror genre. Now, so horror is like a genre where they use different type of, genres to help scare the audience, like scare the crap out of everybody.
Yeah, horror, it's probably the most well-known, or one of the most well-known genres, of film and examination. But horror, it's the way that gets the viewers scared. They want to get you scared to the point where you will actually watch. Like, there's that eagerness, like, oh, I want to see if I'm going to get scared today. How scary is this? Is this legit? Is this real? Yeah, that's what happens. That's what every movie producer wants to try and grab the audience. They just want to pull them in. That's the appeal that they're trying to bring to the audience with the horror genre.
Yeah, scaring them with jump scares, extremely scary imagery, or extreme violence. It's like provokes a good reaction out of the audience.
Right. That's how horror works. It's been like that for years.
Yeah, it was to the point where back in the 20th century, some were outright banned in other countries or just censored.
Yeah, it's just like the 1920 film Nosferatu.
Yes, they're making a remake of that one.
The OG version. You could have Night of the Living Dead by George Romero.
Mm-hmm.
That's when zombies really came to life.
Yeah, then The Walking Dead helps seals it right there.
The Walking Dead does help seal it, at least from 1 through 6 in terms of seasons. And then in the horror genre, as we get into the next stop here, some examples of horror. You get into the later years of horror in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and even the 90s, too. You get to films like Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Halloween.
Yep.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Nah, it's a classic.
Yeah.
And now,
I especially like the sequel.
taking what's been built into the OG films of the 20s and the 30s, and they've just taken it up a notch to where it was so unbelievably freaky to watch. And how could we leave off if we're talking about horror movies with serial killers? How could we leave out Psycho from 1960s
or The Exorcist from 1970s?
Exactly, and that's what happens.
Yeah, the film it caused a lot of reactions. We're talking vomiting, early pregnancies, a lot. I'm not kidding. It resulted in a lot of reactions with that movie.
Yeah, I don't really fancy some of that type of stuff, but I am a Halloween guy. Halloween 4 is my favorite one of the Halloween trilogy.
I like Halloween 2.
Who would have thought that you take a Captain Kirk mask, you paint it white, and you dye the hair, and you would get arguably the most iconic horror movie icon in history? Yeah, you get Michael Myers. He's not gonna make you name some of the stuff that happened with The Exorcist again.
Cause vomiting, intense scares, even pregnancies that happen early.
I'd say only one out of those three have been a common theme in the Halloween films, and that's intense scares. You don't know when Michael is gonna come out of nowhere. He could come from anywhere. He could come from your closet. He could be right behind you for all we know. But that's him. He's the king of horror. He's the root of all evil.
Yeah, the big three of horror is seen as Jason, Michael, and Freddy, with Leatherface being kind of a runner-up.
Yeah, I would put Leatherface over Freddy just because Freddy could have been kind of a jokester at times, especially when
he has personality, at least. Same thing with Leatherface. At least they both have personality.
Yeah, but Leatherface is like a 6'6" mastodon that walks around with a chainsaw.
Yeah, that's basically bullied by his own family.
In Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really fancy if you're trying to be like Freddy Krueger. Like you said, he's got some sense of humor and he has a character. Have we really heard Leatherface talk that much?
Well, he mostly makes a bunch of grunt noises.
Yeah, scary enough, but nothing ever beats silence. That's why if you look at Jason and Michael is just a lot more intimidating because he's just a white, pale face that just moves slowly and just doesn't even think his brain. That's why I'll say this about the Halloween franchise. John Carpenter really knew what he was doing by trying to just bring in everybody with that music. The soundtrack of Halloween clears every horror movie film franchise. The Halloween soundtrack is the best.
Yeah, John Carpenter, he actually composes his own musical score and everything.
He's great.
Yeah. So when most people think of horror, they always think it's always for adults, but there are kid-friendly horror films out there, like Scary Stories to Tell from the Dark, or Like there's also probably Casper if you were to think of it as horror, and Ghostbusters, a lot of them.
Ghostbusters is more of a comedy for me, but you do got a point.
I mean, and who's to say that horror is meant to be all dark? It could be lighthearted.
I disagree. Like horror's not supposed to be soft on the viewers, and horror, in my opinion, is supposed to be the root of all evil. It's supposed to scare you. It's supposed to make you feel bad. It's supposed to make you feel a lot of negative things. It's supposed to make you feel excited. That's the one positive. So that's why horror, it's really lost its touch nowadays, and it's not what it used to be. So that's why any movie director, you're making a horror film, make sure you do it right.
Yeah. Yeah, like there's also this film called X that came out a couple years ago.
X. Ooh, that one was nice. I like that one.
Yeah, they also made a prequel around the same time they were making X called Pearl. Yeah. Yeah. So horror, like it usually is associated with many genres, including comedy, action, science fiction, fantasy, and even superhero. Like there's this one called Legion, part of the X-Men series.
I love the X-Men. I don't think I've seen that one yet.
Yeah, Legion is about Professor X's son David, who had gained mind abilities just like his father, but it was mistaken for mental illness, and he's trying to figure himself out.
Sounds interesting. I might actually give that a watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's all we have for today's show, but stay tuned. We will be back next show to talk about the fantasy genre, but for now, see you next time.